7th, 2023. I just want to call to order the Town of Cohasset almost said Conservation Commission Sidewalk and Safety Connectivity Committee meeting. We have in attendance this, tonight. We have a full quorum. Well, we have 4 people. We don't have a full group of us. We have Jay Pimpare, Julie Rollins, Frank Giacchetti, and Paul Grady. That is 4. We are missing Bob Mulhall, Brian Joyce, who hopefully will join us shortly. I did speak with him yesterday. He was going to join us. And Tori, we're missing Tori Hanna. Yep. Okay. So, any event, just a couple of updates. I know it's been a little while. We've had there's been a lot going on, but not a lot going on with everything happening here. We had the holidays, and we're coming into the holidays just to regroup. Obviously, as you are now well aware of the special town meeting, whereby it was a more than a 2/3 vote to put the sidewalk stabilization fund onto the ballot, town ballot for the November election. That stabilization fund did pass. So thank you for all of your support, Frank, with the vote yes signs that were made, and all of you who participated in that effort with making the video, assisting on the video, and all the outreach. So the stabilization fund did pass. That is and looks like Brian Joyce has joined us as well. So the town will now we will have access to an additional $800,000, which is really huge because as of right now, I believe we're still operating. We would have been operating under a $300,000 budget, which really isn't going to get us very far. So we have some additional monies to work with. And so I just wanted to kind of regroup a little bit. I want to share my screen a little bit, talk about the paving plan for 24, 25, and 26 and beyond. There is nothing set in stone right now. I would like to take the next couple of months and work towards hopefully having some type of a final draft, if you will, plan by, maybe we can talk about a date, maybe by like April 1st or even sooner. Would be great to have an outline of the roadways and or sidewalks that are on our hit list for 2024, given the monies that we actually have available. So just to regroup a little bit, you all know what the projects were for 2023, but the biggie was Elm Street. It is finished to a point that the signage or the striping, etc., has not been completed yet. And Brian, feel free to chime in here at any time. It's all kind of weather dependent now as far as the signage go. I understand that so if you've seen the road, the rough coat has been done. The final coat has been done. All of the sewers and whatnot have been raised to grade. These sidewalks are all complete. There's no more, construction or paving that needs to be done outside of the striping. And as I understand, and again, Brian, let me know if I got this wrong, that the striping will happen in the near future. Just the center lines and some other stuff. And we will talk over the winter about safety measures, such as things that have already been proposed, like bike lanes and walk lanes, etc., in around the triangle, so that when the warmer weather hits, the final striping can be done, and we will tackle all of those safety measures. Brian, did I get that all correct?
Yeah, that's right, Jay. So all the surfaces, sidewalks, curbing, everything's done down there except for striping. We are waiting on warmer temperatures, and it looks like potentially daytime mid next week we'll do. Again, it's just the center line and the crosswalks. And there's been a lot of ideas about sharrows, parking, no parking. So we really, I guess, as a group should sketch out what that's going to look like before we that extra stuff done.
Right. So do you have a plan now for just the center line and some other striping, or is it truly just going to be the center line going right down the middle of the road?
Yeah, it's a center line right down the middle of the road, and the it's a single yellow. There's no fogs out there. There weren't fogs there before. Um, and just part of our discussion, so that's going to be done for the winter time, the
Yeah.
crosswalks and line. And then what we discuss over the winter, like as far as sharrows or parking, there's a lot of ideas, and a lot of the residents have some input too on, they don't want certain lines or they want other lines. So I think it should be, you know, uh, maybe include a couple of the local residents who have interest out there as well.
Yeah, and happy to send the message out to a few of those residents that can circulate a little bit further. As you know, these meetings are all public meetings, and as probably mid-January, February, we'll start to dive into that a little bit, or have dedicated meetings for Elm Street with the signage, and have a rough plan already drafted out. So yeah, happy to incorporate all that. Again, nothing's going to happen probably before, I would even say April 15th. Is that a safe date, Brian?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we need warmer temperatures, and we need all the streets to be swept, which is, April 15th is probably the earliest.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes, depending on how bad the winter is, sometimes it takes till like first or second week of May to get everything swept up, and we're not painting anything until all the sand and salt are swept up.
Right. Okay. So I'll just throw a date out of May 1st, just as a rough date, as we continue to start talking about that as a due date for coming up with the final plan. Um,
Yeah.
for that, for the safety, we'll call them safety measures in and around Elm Street. Okay. So that's pretty much it of kind of where we were. So my next question, back to Brian, how much money is actually left over, if any, from 2023 that we are dealing with? So as I understand it now, moving forward, we will continue to have the 300,000 that has been allocated, and obviously the new 800,000 stabilization fund. I assume we have access to that in 2024. That would put us up at 1.1 million as an annual budget if all that holds true. Is there any leftover money from 2023, Brian?
No, so we've fully expended 2023, and we still have invoices to pay. Edwards just finished their work, and it's usually 30 to 45 days to get those in and paid. So we won't know till after the first of the year exactly where we landed, but it's fully expended.
Yeah.
And probably a little bit more, but the it's not, so the 800,000 is, I guess, in lieu of the capital budget committee typical contribution. In addition to that, it was the Chapter 90 money, which was closer to like 210,000. So it's not 300. So we're looking at like close to a million, if with Chapter 90 plus that 800. The 300 number that we've been tossing around in past discussions is what typically the capital budget would throw in at town meeting, but that the whole road fund, I think, is in lieu of that.
Okay.
I
All
can
right.
answer
Well,
that, Jay. It is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
So I can answer that. Brian's right. It is in lieu of the 300,000, but we get the Chapter 90 usually. So, and Brian, you tell me if they've ever missed, but that's about 200,000. So we're playing around with about $1 million a year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, any questions on any of that from any members? All right. Couple things that, as Linnell, let me do a little screen share here. Couple things that we had been working on, and what I would like to focus future. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So the sidewalk committee recommendations.
Yep.
All right. So this is the Google spreadsheet or OneDrive, whatever we're calling it here, for everybody to continue to look at. Everybody has a dedicated area. Some of you have done a much better job than I, as you can see where I am, and others. So just a note to continue to keep that up. I think what might be good is for the next meeting is to have each individual go through their section, spend 10 or minutes or so, however long it takes, and maybe we just do 2 of these in a meeting, and go through and just kind of as a group look into the recommendations on current roadways, what should be in the immediate future, 2 years, 3 years, 5-year plan, and really kind of zone in on all that. I did have, what did I do with I had my map here somewhere. I forget what I did with my map. But as you all know, we all have our specific areas. So just a reminder to go back and look at those particular areas. And if you could update them for the next meeting and the meeting after, or meetings to come, that would be great.
Jay, can I ask a question?
Hey, Jay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
I just sorry about that. Jay, I know I threw one in there, but it's been a lot going on since then.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a few here, Paul. You've got a Pleasant Street, Norfolk, and Bancroft Road.
The reason being, I got to find that because it's a lot's been going on select board wise meetings, and I got to dig into that. I want to add Short Street onto that because I want to make that kind of a priority.
Short Street.
Yeah, and I wrote all the roads, but Short Streets, and I was actually walking up there, and we had an email. That's in tough shape.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it in here right now, and then you can pick up where I left off.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I don't know if yours ended up somewhere else, Paul, because I added a few of these to your tab just because they're right by my house, and instead of self-interest.
Thank you. I thought I had a larger list, Frank, and I appreciate it again.
Yeah, Paul, this looks too good for your work, so thanks, Frank.
So just a quick note on Short Street. The Short Street water main is an 1800s vintage, and that's on the list, and it's being discussed to be replaced by the water department. So that needs to be done before paving that. Otherwise, it probably would have been paved a while ago. But that is in kind of a queue for replacement with the water.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna. Were there more questions on it? I don't know if. Julie, I don't know if I heard you.
Yeah, I have a question just about the task. Could you go over? Would you mind going to my my tab, Beechwood area? I think it was one of the first. There we go. And this is a question for you and Brian. Should I remove any of the roads that are private from this list? Or should I leave them, or should I mark them as private? And the reason I ask is because, before knowing Bates Lane was private, Brian, I did drive around the neighborhood and I did think, it needs paving. And we know from the Tarpies it does. So I just don't know whether to include it or not in our recommendations, because we won't be using, I don't think we're going to be using these funds to be paving the private roads.
I could probably answer that on a select board queue, if that was all right.
Go ahead, Paul.
Julie, I would definitely mark them as private. I would not say that not to, because private ways are going to be coming up in front of the board at some point. We're getting a lot of push on it. Yeah. What we do, I would mark them as private because they're not in queue to get paved.
Will do.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right on that. It is going to be a point of discussion because they are coming up.
Yeah, we have no priority list or analysis on any of the private roads in town, right? So, drive at the top of Pleasant Street. You go left. You go to Reservoir Road. That's in good shape. That's public. You go right. You go to Old Pasture. That's private. So there's a lot of private roads in town that are in bad shape. So, listing them is a good thing, but I would say if we're going to do it correctly and throw the right amount of money at it, I'd probably want to do an analysis like we did with the TEC report on the private roads too, and give them, you know, a PCI index number and prioritize them that way. But
Hmm.
we legally can't use any of that 800 or any town road money on private ways without any kind of select board or town meeting action.
Okay, very good. So should I add a column, or maybe do you want to add a column, Jay, while you're in there? A column that just denotes private or public. And then I can go through and just check with my list that you sent to me, Jay and Brian, of the list of which ones are private and public. I can update this
Okay.
and just mark the ones that are private.
Yeah, totally. What is functional class? Okay.
I think that was like a feeder street or a main artery street. I forget the names. You guys, Brian might know better than me.
Yeah, I'll get it's in the TEC report, but yeah, it's basically a main arterial or a connector street, or, you know, a dead end would be, not a feeder.
All right. Let me play around with that and see if I can insert cells.
There you go. Insert column left.
Column left.
There you go.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Private. Public. Perfect. Great. And I'll do that. So I know Bates Lane, obviously, but there may be a few
All right,
other.
I'll do that for all of them later on.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much, Jay. Thank you.
Yep. So again, this would be great to go through at future meetings, and again, we'll craft an agenda such that maybe we can hit, you know, two of these, since we've got five sectors or 5 areas of town. And then, so just kind of jumping forward here, and again, I don't need to spend a lot of time today. We're just really kind of regrouping, and hopefully we can set a date and get all 7 members here at the next meeting. What I have done, and Brian, I sent you a message. Do you have this? This looks like a PDF or file. Do you have this in an Excel spreadsheet that you could send over so that we don't have to recreate this, or
I have that. I definitely have that in Excel. I don't know. I'll have to look at that one. Can you just email me that one? I'll make sure it's that one we've been working off of, because I have several versions.
I can definitely do that. All I've really done to this one, since I can't edit it too much, is just color code it. And so what I have color coded here, obviously, so just a reminder, this is the draft roadway plan put together by the DPW, and obviously going back to 2022, this past year, 2023, and then projects that are somewhat slated up for the year and next year, and moving on forward. So what I have done, I've highlighted the ones in green that I believe have been already completed. And ones that are in yellow are areas that are slated to be completed for 2024, but those areas, and actually this one, oh, that's different, are as a result of like a gas line or a water line or whatever it may be, but it's not coming out of our budget. And so, Brian, love to talk to you more, not right now, but if there are any others that are on this list that are slated to be done over, I know Beechwood is, I know Pond Street is, but I don't think it's this area. It's a different area of Pond Street. And if there are any others, well, it looks like Short Street is slated, that are to be funded by either a gas company or the water company or somebody other than the town's sidewalk budget. Please let me know, and I'll kind of highlight those in yellow.
Will do.
All right. So just looking back at this list, I know Pond Street from 3A to King Street is something that is in and Julie, I'll defer to you here because I don't drive that road as much. I know that's an area that is in need of repair for whatever reason. Didn't get done in 22 or 23. And I know there was talk of some sidewalk in the area. There's also the Pond Street extension, and I don't know the exactly where it is. I have a rough idea of where it is, but it's also King Street to the dead end. And then there are some areas that, at least on this list, James Lane, Spring Street, which Dome Street, and Pond Street extension again. So, I don't know how the monies are going to fall, but it looks like 106. And again, these were estimates. The actual real quote was coming in only at, which was a benefit, 50 to 60% of these costs. But as you know, every year, increased costs go up. So let's assume that the estimate is, I should say, the real quote is 70% of this. I'd like to think we're still in decent shape. If in fact we went with these projects, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You probably at $1 million. If we hit all the blues here, if in fact these were on the hit list, I mean, you've already allocated your $1 million, and we haven't done any sidewalks.
Mhm.
So that's what
I just have two comments. Just two comments.
Yep.
If you were looking for that. The first one is Pond Street Extension. That's just a driveway between King Street and the water treatment plant.
Okay.
So, and it looks like it's in fine shape to me. We walk it with our dog every day. It looks perfectly fine, but I don't know why it's here. Brian, I defer to Brian because he would know better than I why it would be listed here.
Yeah, I think you're talking about basically it's really a trail, the one you're talking about.
Oh, it's a road. It's what the water treatment workers, the sewer and water treatment workers use with, it's a road, but it's a driveway just from King Street into the water treatment plant.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one that goes downhill, right, Julie?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that doesn't look in bad shape.
It looks like it's
I
great
think
shape
that's
to
not
me.
part of. We're not going to use road funds on that, but I think
Right.
it also they extend up through the woods and reconnect with King Street further up. In that linear foot. But at any rate, that's not part of the plan. We're not going to use funds to do a driveway, basically.
Yeah, if that's what it is, I may be misunderstanding what this is. But it says Pond Street Extension. So I am aware of a path in the woods on King Street that is all overgrown, and it's a path, and it would be fabulous for that just to be maintained so that people can use it to walk so they don't get hit on the road on King Street. But that's on King Street, so I don't think it's pond.
Yeah, I think that is technically a public way.
Oh, great. It should be maintained.
Yeah, I mean maintained, but not paved. Let me just say.
No, not paved. Not paved. Just we need someone to go in there with a weed whacker.
Yeah, all right. So, I mean, I guess as far as, I'm bringing up the road classifications. We have arterial roads, highway, which is like 3A, arterial roads, which are like South Main, North Main, those type roads, collector roads, which would be kind of the ladder roads that connect those arterial roads, like Sawyer Street, Pond Street, Beechwood, and then local roads would be the kind of the lowest tier. As far as next year's paving plan, the hard and fast ones, we do have that Pond Street section that was trenched between 3A and past the high school alumni entrance there.
That's a gas company fund, right?
Correct. And then Beechwood Street, where the water main and gas main went through, and the side street off of Beechwood, name is escaping me right now, but Mill Lane, thank you. And then South Main Street is really the big one. So South Main Street, we're revisiting quotes on that with the TL Edwards. We're going to have a meeting with them probably the first of the year based on their New Year's estimates. And we're looking at doing the entirety of South Main Street from the village all the way to Situate line, and then maybe a truncated portion of that from Summer Street to the Situate line. And that the reason being is that the water main from the center of the village out to St. Anthony's Church needs to be replaced. That design is going through, and hopefully it will be constructed if bids are all, if the design's done and the bids come in good, and we get that done in the spring and the summer, but it may not have enough time settlement to pave it next year. But South Main Street is on the short list. It's in terrible condition. It's been on the short list for a long time. So,
Right.
So based on what those quotes come back at, we'll quote the road paving, and then all of that has sidewalk as well. So we need to make a decision as a group. Do we want to do, what do we want to do with that sidewalk? Because as you know, the sidewalk's pretty expensive, and it goes for the full length of South Main Street.
Hey, Carol,
So,
sorry to interrupt. Carol, could you elevate Tori? She's been waiting in the wings for a
I
little
did.
bit. Oh, thank you.
I'll try it again.
I just got in. Yeah.
Oh, there she
sorry.
is.
Been in the
Thank
wings
you.
here, chiming
Thank you.
into the Q&A on all my comments, but don't mind me.
I couldn't see it because I'm just staring at this screen. When you share your screen, I just have this draft road plan. That's all I see.
All good, no worries. It was on that King Street. There is a path, a paved path there, but it's all buckled up off of King down to the water treatment plant. It's all buckled up, so you can't actually like bike down it without, like, a kid couldn't bike down it. So I think we either need to repave it or make it a dirt path that just gets kept up, type of thing.
Yeah, if that's
Okay.
what this is, I'm just not clear from this paving plan that's, because it doesn't say King Street, it says Pond Street Extension and 420 feet, which makes me think it's from the stop sign, that driveway down to the gates.
So here's
Tori,
what
you know what I
I
mean?
recommend, because there seems to be some really good discussion on this. Just going back to, and then Tori, I don't know if you were on when we talked about this probably 10 or 15 minutes ago, is that how about, since this is a heavy topic, for the next agenda, for the next meeting, which would probably be the first week of January, and we can talk about a specific time, let's go through the King Street and Beach Street area with Tori and Julie, and go through kind of each one of these roadways and then compare them to what's on the list here, such that if there is an immediate need, we have, and if you have the length of the road, roughly what the length is, that would be great to fill in this column so that we can compare this spreadsheet to this spreadsheet here. And if the roadway is in dire need of being paved or whatnot, then we can elevate that. So let's do that for the next meeting. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm just not sure what to call it. Do we call it King Street?
Well, I think, here's the other thing, which would be, because when we do have the next meeting, I'll probably have one of you share your screen a little bit. And if you have kind of a diagram or a GIS map and can hone in on that particular area so that we can see it, that would really be helpful.
Yeah, we can do that, right, Tori?
Or even pictures
Yes.
as well.
That's perfect. Yeah, I was going to say I can get some pictures too of the places that we think are the higher priorities.
Yep.
I mean,
right.
So Pond Street, just to clear up the Pond Street extension. So it is that driveway it does include the driveway to the water department, but it looks like the linear footage is only going from there to the water department. But the actual alignment of the whole Pond Street extension, and if you look at the Muni mapper, you can measure it there and you can see the road layout. The road layout goes all the way up through that kind of buckled area you were saying that was overgrown.
Oh, oh,
So the entire linear footage is somewhere around like 800 feet if you include the driveway and that buckled area. But to the water department, it's about 400 and something feet.
Interesting. So maybe we can add, instead of 420, we change, or we get rid of the 420 bit and we measure the buckled section and we just put that in, because, and it does need major rehab, I guess you'd call it that, it needs to be paved. Whereas the Pond Street extension, the 420 that's listed on the road plan, doesn't need anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even, I mean, it seems like the more important road is the Pond Street section from King Street to 3A, right?
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
what Tori and I are so passionate about, is getting that Pond Street section from 3A to King paved. And then with a small section on the side, it can be, I'm okay with a Cape Cod berm, but some sort of a sidewalk so that children in this half of town can connect to the other side, to the schools and to the other side of town. And I know it might require some work. We're happy to do the work, but we really feel strongly that when we pave this section of Pond Street, we should be adding a sidewalk of some kind.
Right. So I think I would remove the extension part of it and just and kind of put Pond Street from 3A to King Street on that in lieu of that extension, Pond Street extension piece. And the linear footage on that roughly, I mean, I got it right here, is
It's 420 feet, Brian.
Not the section from King Street to 3A is about 1,150 feet.
Okay, that's what we have here on the draft road plan. I don't know if you're seeing my screen.
Sorry, no, I'm working off of my phone.
So what you have there is 1164 feet.
Okay.
And it comes out to the estimated cost is like $144,000. So yeah, and again, that's left over from the 2022 plan.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, then I think just removing the Pond Street extension, it's just, I think it's maintained internally. It's not worth using, town road funds to do a driveway to a facility, or, the walking path we can clear up with in-house staff without having to use any paving money.
Jay, could I throw something out there?
Go ahead, Paul.
Is it possible maybe in the next meeting to start interspersing sidewalk repair in with that? I don't know how expensive. Brian would be the expert on that, but I'm just thinking of places like Jerusalem Road, Pleasant Street going to the village. The kids use it all the time. They use Jerusalem all the time. I'm just thinking of ones that are in need of repair, not serious, but real degradation.
Yeah.
That's
No, I mean that's a good point, Paul. And as we go through, if you're seeing my screen here, just jumping back to the recommendations of where we highlight one particular area of town, and for the next meeting we'll highlight King and Beach Wood area. Is you see this whole column here is the recommended sidewalk, and whether or not there's an existing sidewalk, that's the point. That's the time to say existing sidewalk is in place. However, it's deteriorating, blah, 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 et cetera, X amount of feet, should be reevaluated, et cetera. So
no, I'm fine with that. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely. And that's, again, note to everybody, when we have that column there, that column is there for a reason. And, so as we kind of start to think about all this with dollars and cents, I mean, as Brian pointed out, if you just said, for the sake of not having any more meetings, and in 2024 we were going to do some areas of Pond Street and South Main Street, the budget's already gone. I mean, so there is no money left to do much of anything.
I think it's good practice to identify our needs and prioritize them. But South Main Street is kind of at the top of the hit list, and that's gonna, right, like you said, it's gonna eat up a great majority.
Right.
But as far as, I don't know who has that section of area, maybe if you all want to look at it. I mean, I think a big ticket item on that is sidewalk. So we've kind of taken the tack that as a group that we're going to do sidewalks that are continuous with roads that we're paving, but just take a look at it. If some of the sidewalk is okay, I know a lot of it's deteriorated, but if you could reduce the amount of sidewalk we do on that, that would greatly reduce the cost of what we're spending on that road.
Yeah, and I don't think that we need the fancy sidewalk that we have, the granite curbing like on Elm Street. But as like someone mentioned, the Cape Cod, where it's just a kind of a little bit of a lip, and then you've got 3 or 4 feet of sidewalk that continues on. Again, Brian, I guess you could get a little creative as far as looking at the width of the actual roadway. Maybe, I don't know, again, it probably is going to come down to a dollars and cents thing as well at the end of the day. For any roadway, not highlighting this one, any roadway where we're going to add potentially sidewalk is, maybe the roadway can be shortened a foot or so, in such that you're only adding 2 feet as opposed to adding 4 feet. Because then, and I don't know about that particular roadway, but you get into the wetland issues and you get into the permitting from Conservation Commission, and that's a tough group. So now you've got to get engineering designs, etc. So can be a little bit of a lengthy process, but happy to go through all of it. Paul, your hand is still up. I don't know if you forgot to raise it.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I'm good.
All right. Okay. Any questions on all of this? This is going to continue to be a work in progress. I know we're.
Did I understand correctly that Beechwood, the length of Beechwood, and then the section in front of the high school with Pond Street, that those are not coming out of our budgets? Those repavings are coming from other funds?
Yes.
Yeah, so the roadway curb to curb is not our funds, but the sidewalks will be our funds. So we are tapping road funds, to do the sidewalks that are continuous with that, because we can't really pin National Grid to do sidewalks that they haven't even, they haven't touched with the road work.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the plan is to refurbish or fix the sidewalks on Beechwood and on the other pond.
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of these sidewalks, I think we've gone through before, like curbing's. If you add curbing, it's expensive. I think a lot of these stretches of sidewalk are just grass strips between the road,
right,
and the sidewalk. So we just need to make sure that the sidewalk has the width for ADA, and that transitions to crosses and intersections have the the proper ADA ramps and tread mats. So I think it'll be cheaper, per linear foot than Elm Street, which had all the curbing, but it's still all handwork, and it's a lot more expensive than road work just because it's crews doing handwork and smaller equipment.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good to know. I do agree that those sidewalks need to be fixed up too, and I support the funds being used for that. Absolutely. Makes sense. And there's a couple of areas on Beechwood that I noted where the sidewalk is just non-existent. It just it disappears in front of a few houses. So I'm hoping that means that they'll like pave in front of those sidewalks, so that in front of the houses, so that there's sidewalk there.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think that when you drive down like the Beechwood roadway, there are some areas, and pretty much looks like almost all of the sidewalk is on the right hand side. I guess if you're leaving, was it Shaw's and going up to the Situate line or up in that area, the sidewalk is on the right. Some areas you've got a nice little grass strip, and then you've got 3 or 4 feet, and then other areas you go around the corner, and it's like the sidewalk almost like disappears.
It's gone. Yeah.
Or it comes down to like 1 or 2 feet. So there needs to be some further evaluation and some engineering design there when the time comes for all that. I completely agree.
Yeah, so so the stretch that we're doing is the limits from basically Bound Brook to King Street, or to Shaw's. And I did walk it, and it does look like it when you're driving it, that the sidewalk goes to nothing, but there is room there. And a lot of times when that happens, it's because it's a giant hunk of ledge or something that they didn't remove when they originally paved the road. But there is 4 feet of you know, kind of plan view that we can play with before you get to that fog line. So, you know, maybe we add a bit of curbing in those tight areas just to kind of further identify, you know, this is pedestrian 4 feet, but we do have the width to do it.
Oh, good.
But it does, like, you know, as you perceive it driving, you know, 30, 40 miles an hour, that you see a sidewalk and then it just goes away. And it seems like
Brian, I think you mean 25 miles an hour.
yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Oh geez, yeah.
Well, so Brian, I guess, you know, getting back to the safety measures here as a safety component of this meeting of this committee, for Beechwood, for example, or any areas where there is actually a Cape Cod potential Cape Cod berm, I assume we can put in some striping right before the Cape Cod berm there to identify that, hey, the roadway actually does end, so people don't take the corner a little bit wider, just assuming they're on black ground. Put some striping in there when the time comes.
Yeah, so Beechwood's one of the streets, and not all of our streets have fog lines. That's the white line that's on the side of the road, but Beechwood does have a fog
Looking out
line.
the window, and mine, the Jerusalem Road, does not.
Yeah, so right, not all of them do, but I think Beechwood's one that does. But the problem is we have to paint it every year, you know. And if you're in springtime and you have a lot of road sand down and it's, you know, been worn away, it's those lines disappear, depending on what time of year it is.
Okay. Paul left us, but we still have a quorum of 5 members here. I was going to say something else about so Brian, as we start to talk about roads like Beechwood and being paved and sidewalks being constructed, is there an actual engineering or a schematic plan in the books so that TL Edwards has that ahead of time on how far the sidewalk's going to come out, or is it like a kind of design as you go when they get out?
A lot of it's field engineering. The plans we have are generally utility plans, like the water main, and they don't always quantify elevations and kind of widths of sidewalk. They use a historical road layout, and they're just really focused on the utility that they're designing. So it's not worth it to pay for an engineering design to go, because you're talking about, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for what. So that's why the quotes they're estimates, and then as we get closer, like 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to a month before they do the work, we walk the project with the paver and say, hey, this driveway curb cut needs, you know, a little extra work, or, you know, and then that kind of narrows down the scope. But it's all really field engineering.
I think that's all good to know. I can kind of assume that was the case for obvious reasons, financial and others. There's changes that need to be made, but that would also be a good time, as we have broken up the town into quadrants or 5 different areas, where we have dedicated committee members when the time comes, if that area jurisdiction is within your jurisdiction, to also try and go along on that walk or the walkthrough to say, hey, you know, this actually makes sense, or so that it's not too late after the fact.
Sure.
But we're ways away from that. All right. So being courteous of everybody's lunch hour here on Thursday, I would like to just try and talk about future meetings. November was a big month with holidays, and I know I was pretty tied up and had been tied up for months, but we had the special election. Now that that's all out of the way, we've got the Christmas holiday coming up, and might be tough to try and plan a meeting. I'm going to be away the week before Christmas. I would propose that we have our next meeting in January. And I know Tuesdays seem to be a good fit, but I know, Julie, do you still have that commitment at 11:30? You're on mute. Sorry, Julie.
So sorry. Through May, I am tied up on Tuesdays between 11:30 and 1:15.
Okay. So let me just ask the group here. Does this kind of, I know we all have busy lives and we all have work, outside of Brian and Carol, which we take away from your work lunch hour here. Does this 12 o'clock time frame work for people? Like 12 o'clock? Or is there a better time? I mean, or no, all times not good.
Tori, what's good for you?
I mean, I
Honestly,
know.
like during the day, like if like the noon times are generally pretty good. Mondays are horrible for me because I feel like that's like I'm just
Yep.
back to back. Thursdays are generally like towards the end of the week, even Fridays are a little more laxed on the work front, but I'd rather midday because once 4 o'clock hits and the kids come home, my
Oh yeah.
life goes awry.
I completely agree. That's if we go to nightly meetings or in-person meetings, you'll be
I'm
looking for
out.
a new chair.
Yeah.
How about Thursdays around noon? Would Thursdays work for
Thur-
folks?
Thursday at noon is perfect. If we could maybe have like a standing meeting, I would I would propose the let's shoot for the fourth. How does the fourth work on people's schedules? Like I'd try to go like the 4th and the 18th or the 11th and the 25th.
Um, hang on
Try to
one
get 2 of them in for January. I know it's
I'm
the week after the big holiday.
I'm fine with either, but I guess I lean slightly towards doing 11 and 25 just because that first week back after the holidays tends to be a bit of a catch up at work, and people
Okay.
might be especially busy that week because they're catching up from having been out. But
Yep.
I could make any 4 of those days work. Thursdays are great for me. What
I
about you,
make the 4th or
Brian,
5th
Carol?
work right now.
Frank, how about you?
Yeah, that should be fine. I can generally make anything work if I have some heads up.
Brian, you're a key player in this. So we're all key players. Well, the key players for the next meeting are going to be Tori and Julie. So let's zero in. Let's go for on the 11th for that meeting.
Okay.
And Brian, does that work for you as well? January
Yeah, all
11th.
those dates work for me. Noontime and those dates work. Generally, I kind of have booked meetings, 8 to noon. So noon's usually pretty good.
All right. So let's shoot for Carol. If we could set a date, and I'll get an agenda out and long before then. And Thursday actually works a lot better for agenda items. Tuesday, I realize on Friday at noontime that we have an agenda on Tuesday and I haven't got it out yet, so it helps with the 48-hour issue. So let's shoot for the next 2 meetings, and I'll send an email to the group of January 11th and January 25th. From 12 to like 1:30. And so just a heads up, the January 11th meeting, we will focus on the Beechwood King Street area. It'll be the Julie and Tori show to just kind of go through their portion of the spreadsheet that we're all sharing, and just kind of look at those and identify areas where roadways are in need of repair, like kind of really focus in like this roadway really needs repair. And then if you had some like either pictures, because it sounds like there's still maybe a question or two about what areas we're really talking about, and then maybe like an overview of a map, like a GIS map that you can kind of pull up and highlight and say, and you can do this in advance, say this is the particular area we're talking about, like a photo shot from the moon coming down onto the area around the water plant or any other areas that we're talking about. Does that all sound good?
It does.
Okay. All right. And then we'll pick on somebody else for the next meeting. I'm happy to go forward. We could probably get a couple of areas for the January 18th meeting, and then spend February and kind of bang these out. And so by the end of February, if we have 2 meetings in January and 2 meetings in February, we'll have a really good idea about roadways that we can propose for 2024, even though it sounds like we probably already have a little bit of our list already made up. But that's why we have this committee to really zone in and hone in and even look and see what really can be tallied up for 2025 and 2026, given the funds we have. And it would be great to look at the road paving plan there, that PDF file. And Brian, if you have that in an Excel, that would be great. And I'll share it to the group to kind of look and see what's on the plan for like 2024 and 2025, et cetera. And if some of those areas are already slated to be done, like Beechwood or others that maybe is going to be funded by an outside entity, then we free up some money to do something for those years. All sound good?
Yep.
Brian, the individual is gone now, but we had Joe Coggins as an attendee for the entire meeting up until about 2 minutes ago. Just FYI.
Oh yeah, no. So I wish I had known that. So when I had said some interested residents on how we were going to stripe Elm Street as far as sharrows and parking, no parking, Joe was one of those interested residents. So I actually told him we were having this public meeting and he should, hop on if we were going to talk about how we were going to stripe it. So that was it.
Yeah. So that's another key item that we want to get on the table there. And I don't think that's going to be a one item or a one call topic, is the striping for Elm Street. And I'll work with this group, and maybe we can talk about that on the January 11th call about how to get the public more involved, or I should say a couple residents. I don't think anyone's ever going to be satisfied enough, no matter what you do, no matter how you do it, but it will have public input to that. But yeah, that's another thing we want to try and get done. So Brian, what's like a drop dead date that we would want to have a final 2024 paving plan, so we can all kind of think about that? Like, these are the 2, 3, 4, 5 roads that are on the 2024 plan, and this is what's getting done.
I think by the mid-March, end of March, would be pretty good.
Okay.
And we'll have updated quotes hopefully by Edwards by that time.
So is Edwards now, when you say updated quotes, are they quoting, what are they quoting? Are they quoting your DPW plan of 24 and 25, or what are they quoting?
So we're giving them the short list of the next year, and they go out and we usually do a preliminary drive through with them on the limits of what we're doing. So on South Main Street, that's going to be kind of a 3-part quote. It'll be all of it in its entirety with a separate line item for sidewalks, and then a shorter version from Summer Street to the Situate line, and again with sidewalks as a kind of a separate line item. So we can look at those estimates and see which version we want to do.
Okay. So one thing I haven't brought up, but comes to mind as I start thinking about all this and realizing, looking at all the numbers, that I don't know how we're going to get all this done with the limited amount of funds. Unfortunately, thank God there's $800,000, or there wouldn't even be a sidewalk committee. You couldn't do any of these roadways. Is the grant funding. Frank and I worked, and Brian as well, worked pretty hard last year to put 2 grants together. Unfortunately, both of those got denied. I thought that the ADA accessible ramps for a measly $100,000 was a slam dunk, but perhaps maybe something like the South Main Street sidewalks would be something that would be a good grant application, and others as well. So I have to think about that, and maybe I'll circulate the grant. I think the grants are due May 1st. But right now is the time to work, which we didn't have the opportunity. We weren't afforded that opportunity last year because we only had about a week and a half to put it together. But to work with the state to say, yeah, this is the type of language that we'd like to see in the grant application, so that it can actually move forward. But I learned a lot from last year, and I'm going to start to reach out to the state to see if I can't get some some assistance on that on a couple of projects that, hey, never know, maybe they'll fund them.
Jay, I think I had the same thoughts with you there on like what, as part of our, I guess, like jobs on this committee, it would be like tapping into like what are all the different places that we could tap into to help get more funding for it. So I love that. I also think like that whole 3A corridor, I think we need to also put on our radar. And yes, like I think our top priority right now is figuring out what is the plan, the strategic plan for the next, like 5 years on the budget that we do have. But then I think it is looking at what grants, and then also how do we work this 3A corridor? Because like, not only is there the sidewalk to nowhere on Sawyer, but you have a crosswalk that has no lights, no button to press or anything that goes from that shopping plaza into Whitney Woods, right? And technically you're supposed to be able to cross there. Well, good luck to you on that. Like, and then there's the Pond Street one where if we get the Pond Street sidewalk, again, like you better run your ass across 3A if you don't want to get clipped by a car there, because so we have to work with the state on 3A as well.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you guys see it, but like when I'm driving out of Cohasset going north towards Hingham, there are people walking along 3A that God bless them, but like I'm shocked that there hasn't been more fatalities.
I know.
Going to Avalon and everything else. And it's a concern that I think our committee should be probably like trying to fight for.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and it somewhat complicates it because 3A is a state roadway, so but maybe again would be good to have somebody from like Patrick O'Connor's office or Joan Machino's office to a liaison to work with on that if anybody.
I'm happy to kind of be, and I know Julie and I have both written letters here and there, so I'm happy to like spearhead that for this committee. Okay. I would love like some help and assistance, like as we get it going and figure out like what we need to do to put packages together, like you, Jay, with the grants. Like, I think it would be great to have the support of this committee to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will, after this call, I will send a link to their one-stop grants application just to give you a little flavor of what it looks like and kind of the deadlines and what project, although I don't even know what projects they have funded, but projects that are actually eligible. And really sidewalk and connectivity is huge, a huge component of that. So yeah, happy to do all of that. And thank you for all of that, Tori. That's great. All right. Any last questions? I'll send up a follow up for everybody. Hopefully, Bob can join in on the next call as well, and look forward to seeing everybody. And again, I apologize, had a lot going on. It's been the holidays and the election, and feel free to send around, disseminate, and I will more information by email. We're not as long as we're not deliberating on anything, which we'll deliberate on the actual call, but sharing of information, updating of the sheets, etc., is all totally fine. Is what most committees do as we move forward, as long as we're not deliberating and saying, hey, I don't like this project, or hey, let's vote for this project by email. We'll just save that for these public forum meetings. Mm-hmm. And if I don't, I'll probably see you on the playing fields, a few of you, or at Stop and Shop or Shaw's or somewhere in and around town over the next few weeks. Thanks for all of your assistance. Happy holidays. Let's regroup here on the 11th. And in the meantime, enjoy some time with your families.
Thank you.
Thanks for leading us, Jay.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. Have a great night. Thank you.
You too.
Take care.